details of that flat roller marathon, write to us and we'll send you the address.
You left your curlers in, by the way. Last week I hoped to have got a bird's eye view of the track at Battersea Park when I had my very first ride in an airship. This coming summer, travelling in an airship is going to be a new and luxurious way of sightseeing high over London's rooftops, and I was delighted to have an exclusive preview flight.
I started my journey at RAF Cardington near Bedford and saw the biggest aircraft hangars I've ever come across in my life.
Airships have been housed in these enormous hangars since the late 1920s, when Britain's first airships took to the skies. The infamous R101 docked in here with only 18 feet to spare. Now they're the homes of Skyship 500 and Skyship 600, the very latest developments in aviation technology. All airships look basically the same, but there are very few similarities between these and their ancestors.
There was a forecast of bad weather ahead, so as soon as we arrived, Skyship 500 cast off from its mooring and we jumped on board, hoping to get to London before the bad weather came down. The passenger cabin of an airship is called a gondola, and inside it looked more like a coach than an aeroplane. An airship is very light on the ground because of its giant gas-filled balloon or envelope, so it's manoeuvred quite easily by hand. I had no idea what takeoff would be like and was in for quite a surprise. It was a bit like zooming away in a superb high-powered car, only straight up. My guide for the trip was Algie Williams, who works for the airship company.
It's a really smooth takeoff, isn't it? It's certainly tremendous. Is this the height that we're going to be cruising at now?
Yes, we're at about 1,200 feet. In fact, we cannot take our safety belts off.
We can walk about?
Absolutely.
This is a real thrill for me. I think it's tremendous. It's a very smooth ride, isn't it?
Yeah.
Is that typical of airships?
Yes, the only thing is once we get into very, very heavy air turbulence, but it's the same in any aircraft then.
Why were the early airships so dangerous?
The main problem was that the lifting gas they used was hydrogen, which is desperately inflammable. We use helium, which is inert, and in fact it puts out flames. So this is a very, very safe machine.
That hasn't always been the way with airships. This is the wreckage of the R101, Britain's most famous airship, which crashed in France 55 years ago. Airship travel never recovered from the shock. Without the lightweight materials available today, airships had heavy steel frames. That was why hydrogen had to be used to fly them. Dozens of airships were built, and the German Air Force used them to bomb London in the First World War. After the war, the famous German Zeppelins took the lead in air transport and provided a luxury travel service all around the world. From 1931 to 37, Graf Zeppelin flew regularly across the Atlantic, while guests wined and dined in comfort on board. Their biggest competitors were the great ocean liners like the Queen Mary, but for a while it looked as though the airships might rule the waves by flying above them. After a series of disasters, airships stopped being such an attraction and their popularity plummeted. It's only now, 50 years later, that they're beginning to fly again. There were no waiters in starched coats on our craft, and as we sped towards London, I settled back to enjoy the ride.
Is the weather okay for us today?
We've got very good conditions at the moment. It's nice stable air, good visibility, but the forecast says that I think there's a bit of fog and rain coming, so we'll see what happens.
All right. The great thing, you can see so much more, can't you, than in an ordinary aircraft?
Yes, well, we've got panoramic windows. It's very good for sightseeing.
The flight was very smooth, and I asked Archie what was driving the propellers.
Just behind us here, there are two Porsche car engines, which have been slightly modified, but basically they're the same. They're 3-litre Porsche sports car engines.
First time I've been in a Porsche.
As we neared London, the weather started to get worse, and grey skies surrounded the Skyship. Airships have to travel at 1,500 feet over towns and cities, and the cloud was getting lower and lower.
Any idea where we are now, Algie?
Yes, we're just coming to the outskirts of London, but I'm afraid it's looking pretty murky, which is not looking good for sightseeing, but Let's go and ask the pilot.
We'll have a word and see what he says.
Yeah.
Keep your fingers crossed.
Our captain for the day was Brian Collins, and he wasn't looking too happy with the conditions.
It's looking a bit murky, Brian, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes, it's progressively getting worse.
What do you think about our chances in London?
I think shortly we're going to have to say we can't go any further because in order to reach the Thames, we must climb to a height of 1,500 feet. And as you can see, we're barely making 1,100 feet now, clear of cloud.
What a shame. Yeah.
We'll press on a little longer.
How much different is it from flying a plane?
It's more like flying a boat, or
Is it?
sailing a boat, shall we say, than flying an aeroplane, because we don't have to worry about keeping our wings level. The ship is purely controlled with elevators for pitch, that's nose up or nose down, and we simply steer with a rudder, therefore more boat-like.
Actually, the controls to me don't look that different from a conventional aircraft.
That's right. The turn, as you see here, is simply applying rudder to turn the airship, and the forward and backward movement raises or lowers the nose.
The worsening weather didn't affect Skyship 500, and for a while we kept going, staying just below the cloud level. But things looked grim. Even if we were allowed in London's airspace, we wouldn't be able to see anything.
What's the situation now, Brian?
Well, basically, we were unable to reach 1,500 feet, which was our cleared level into the London control zone, without entering cloud. Therefore, I'm afraid that we're going to have to turn back and try another day.
Oh, shame.
We headed back for RAF Cardington. I was still enjoying the ride, although it was disappointing not to go sightseeing. However, as we approached base, something very familiar appeared alongside us. It was the sister Skyship 600 undergoing test trials.
That's her inside, isn't it?
Yes, that's our largest airship, the Skyship 600, which can take up to 18 passengers. On the drawing board, we have a Skyship 5000 series. Now, this is approximately 10 times the size of this ship we're in now.
10 times?
10 times.
How many people will you have to get on that?
Around 200.
Can they stay up in the air a lot longer than ordinary aeroplanes?
Absolutely right. The 600 can stay up for up to 24 hours.
Big advantage, isn't it?
Well, it's a very big advantage when you are patrolling the coastline, for example. Anti-smuggling platform, it's very good for that. As you can see,
for the smugglers.
yes, very bad news.
It looks beautiful, doesn't it, going along like that?
Yes, as you can see, the gondola, the place that we're sitting right here,
Right.
is very much larger, can take up to 18 passengers, and for long endurance missions, it's very good because you can have bunks in the back, a kitchen.
Right. Going away really fast, isn't it?
Yes, you can see how manoeuvrable the ship is.
Yeah. Lovely shape as well.
Yes.
They look beautiful. What's that noise? Is that the propellers moving?
Yes, that's right. The propellers, which are ducted fans, and vector, this allows the ship to take off and land vertically, and it also allows it to hover.
The swivelling propellers allowed the pilot to land Skyship very precisely. It doesn't need a runway, of course, and it hasn't got landing wheels. In the future, Skyships could land in parks or sports grounds right in the middle of cities. All it needs is a dozen ground staff to run alongside and catch it.
Oh, what a treat. I'd love to have a go in that when the weather's a bit better.
You enjoy it?
Well, we said last week that we were so near and yet so far from our lifesaver appeal, lifeboats total, but we are creeping closer all the time. We're still at the 650,000 mark, but the actual figure is 742,720 envelopes of buttons and postcards.
And that means that we're only 57,730 short of the jackpot. Really?